Well, now to a 3 News exclusive. Bomb City, USA, a true story about organized crime, murder, and a fight for control that left everyone dead or behind bars.
Over the next 3 Thursdays, we'll investigate Cleveland's underworld. You'll hear stories never before told from those who lived it. First up, we're digging into Cleveland's most infamous criminal, Danny Greene. 3 News investigator Rachel Polansky has the first ever interview with the FBI agent who identified Greene's body.
The year's 1977. It's an overcast October day in Lyndhurst, and Danny Greene has just finished a dentist appointment. As he approaches his car, he knows to be careful. He's a walking target. But on this day, he is not careful enough. A bomb, hidden inside the car parked next to his, explodes. And a young FBI agent named Bob Frederick gets a call from his supervisor.
They had already identified that the plate was a vehicle registered to Keith Ritson. And so they figured that Keith Ritson, who was an organized crime figure associated with Danny Greene, had been the one that was killed. So when I got there, I said to them, let me see the body. And he pulled the sheet off the body there, and I said, that's not Ritson, that's Danny Greene.
While Frederick is retired now, he remembers his FBI days vividly, especially his first case, the notorious Irishman, Danny Greene.
My first impression of Greene was I kind of thought he was funny. You know, he's a character. And then it got to the point where I said, you know, this guy's a killer. He's killing people, and this isn't right.
Over a 2-year stretch, there are 37 bombings in Cuyahoga County. The FBI estimates that Greene is involved in 3 of every 4 of them. Greene grew up in Collinwood, eventually finding work on Cleveland's docks as a longshoreman. Later, he built a relationship with Chandler Burns, a Jewish mobster, and one of Cleveland's most notorious racketeers. Author Rick Perello says at first, Greene was Burns' enforcer.
He was responsible for doing the heavy work, intimidating people, maybe throwing a stick of dynamite to basically get someone to go along with what Chandler Burns was doing.
But later their relationship began to sour. Greene wanted to control the city's criminal operations, and the Italians were not having it. Car bombs were the weapon of choice. And in March 1975, Burns became the target.
Holy Saturday, the Saturday before Easter Sunday, at West 25th in Detroit, Chandler Burns was killed in a car bombing.
Greene had declared war on the Italians, and Cleveland was earning its nickname, Bomb City, USA. A month later, another explosion, this time at Greene's own apartment in Collinwood.
Danny Greene and his young girlfriend who were in there, pretty much they walked away unscathed.
But as we know from Scarface, every dog has his day. And Danny Greene would have his on October 6, 1977.
Danny Greene also challenging the mob leadership, blown up in a parking lot in Lyndhurst.
But Greene's murder is not how the story ends. Bob Frederick made sure of it.
I had gotten the registrations for the 2 cars, the bomb car and the getaway car. And all of a sudden it hit me that the renewal sticker had the same, one in sequence, the 2 numbers. About jumped out of my seat. So we ran down to the BMV there, and they said, yeah, this had to be registered by the same guy at the same time.
It meant the bomb car and the getaway car were connected. A few weeks later, Greene's killer would talk, and that confession would cause a ripple effect on organized crime in Cleveland and across the country. That part of the story next Thursday at 11 on What's Next. Rachel Polansky, 3 News.
Well, to me, it was like having a glass of wine. It didn't mean a thing to me. I killed him, and there was no remorse.
Cold as ice. That's hitman Ray Ferrito in 1984 talking about the murder of Danny Greene, a job the Cleveland Mafia hired him to do.
A man with a conscience doesn't last too long on the streets.
But in a twist of fate, Ferrito killed the Irishman only to be brought down himself. Not with a bullet or a bomb, but rather a pencil in the hand of a sketch artist. As Ferrito drove away from Greene's death, she followed him. And then she did what artists do. She drew a picture. Retired FBI agent Bob Frederick tells us the story.
And then she gave that sketch to her father, who was a Berea Police Department police officer, who gave it to Andy Vanio. And Andy Vanio saw the sketch. He said, that's Ferrito.
Stewing in a jail cell, Ferrito felt abandoned by his mafia family, who did not hire him a lawyer. So he called the FBI, and Frederick paid him a visit.
All he said was Greene came out to his car, and we blew him up. And my partner and I left for, just take a break, because we had talked to him for a couple hours. And both of us said to each other, how in the world can this guy be so cold?
No regret.
No regret at all.
No remorse.
No.
Ferrito's testimony paved the way to a sweeping indictment. From the man who detonated the bomb, Ronnie the Crab Carabia, to the boss, James Jack White Licavoli.
But Licavoli was as tough as they come. He was as tough as they come. I had a lot of respect for him.
Cleveland lawyer James Willis defended Licavoli, and 3 months later, he walked. Carabia got life in prison. For Frederick and his team, it was an embarrassing miss.
Yeah, it didn't go well at all. I think what was going through our minds is, what did we do wrong? Why couldn't we convince a jury of this? Because we did have a lot of evidence.
It took 5 years, but the feds finally got another try. And this time, Licavoli did not walk.
That was an injustice.
Oh, we were elated that we got this.
In the end, bombs could not overcome the sketch or the rat who broke his vow. Still, one man remained untouchable.
We did it. We finally got what we wanted. But we didn't get Angelo.
And in Bomb City, USA Part 3, a young federal prosecutor takes on mob boss Angelo Lonardo in this Cleveland courthouse. And what happened here would impact the 5 crime families of New York. That part of the story next Thursday at 11 on What's Next. Rachel Polansky, 3 News. He was one of the untouchables, heir to Cleveland's crime family. Angelo Lonardo made his bones as a teenager after he avenged his father's death.
Angelo was the guy, so he knew everybody.
She, on the other hand, was a carpenter's daughter. Donna Congenie Fitzsimmons was 5 feet tall, maybe 100 pounds. In the courtroom, the patriarchy smirked. An opposing attorney called her a naive lawyerette.
And they were not that receptive to a woman becoming the lead prosecutor on a case like this. But it really worked to their detriment.
After years of bombings and indictments, the Cleveland Mafia had weakened, but Big Ange Lonardo was still standing strong when that young federal prosecutor, who is now a Rocky River Municipal Court judge, took on the Mafia kingpin.
It was thought that we will never really successfully prosecute these cases because there was no evidence of who did what.
She came to court shattering glass ceilings, ignoring death threats, and she had a star witness, mobster turned informant Carmen Zagaria.
In June of 1980, while Bostic was walking down the stairs of Zagaria's West Side pet store, Zagaria says McTaggart shot him twice in the head. When he went down to look, Zagaria told jurors, Hans in his right hand had this cleaver, and he was chopping at Bostic's left hand.
And in January 1983, Congenie Fitzsimmons nailed her landing with a sweeping verdict.
The Cleveland mob's second in command, Angelo Lonardo, guilty. Joe Gallo, his lieutenant, guilty. Kevin McTaggart, guilty. Hans Grave, guilty.
We're very pleased by the results, and we really had a great jury. They were very conscientious, and we think the result was justified by the evidence.
She credits her team, including FBI agent Bob Frederick, for delivering the evidence that swung the jury.
We worked tirelessly. We just never stopped because we were so motivated by, knowing that we had a chance to do something really important.
And what happened in that Cleveland courtroom would impact the 5 crime families of New York. Facing a lifelong prison sentence, the aging Lonardo was ready to cut a deal, and Frederick was there to offer one.
I said, look, and then I gave him my business card, and I said, if you ever need a favor, give me a call. I think we can work something out for you. He called me a week later. He said, I think I want to do business with you guys.
Now another young prosecutor was about to win instant fame. That man was Rudy Giuliani.
These are extremely dangerous individuals. They are people who have destroyed the lives of other human beings.
A few months later, Lonardo, hidden behind a screen to shield his face, became the first sitting mafia boss and the highest-ranking mobster to flip.
My name is Angelo Lonardo. I am 77 years old, and I am a member of the La Cosa Nostra.
With that, the New York and Cleveland Mafia was forever crippled. As for Lonardo, he died quietly in his sleep at the age of 95, but not before he left Bob Frederick, with one parting gift.
And Angelo is on the stand there, and he's testifying against the bosses, and he's testifying against the enterprise itself. And at the bottom here, he wrote on this, "Bob, you made this possible, Angelo."
And while that wraps up our series, it does not wrap up our coverage. You can now check out Bomb City USA, the podcast, just launched today, wherever you get your podcasts. Rachel Polansky, 3 News.
These have been so interesting, and if you're craving more about this fascinating part of Cleveland's history, as Rachel said, you can find it in the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you find your podcasts.